I'm the chair of the RFFE working group, and just to give a real brief overview of the RFFE working group. Essentially, RFFE is targeting the RF front end of the mobile interface. Essentially, it's from the RFIC to the RF front end devices. Traditionally, this has been like a GPIO type of interface, but nowadays, with all the different modes, with all the different bands, the number of control signals required, the RF front end has greatly increased over the past few years with LTE and 4G and all the new technologies. Basically, the interface is a 2-bit, 2-pin interface. Essentially, you have a clock signal and a bidirectional data signal, and essentially it's a point to multi-point interface where there's a master and there's multiple slave devices out there. So it's not the traditional, point-to-point, it's a point-to-multi-point type of interface. And one of the key features is the slew rates are very well spec'd to make sure that there's a very low EMI interference on the RF front end. And essentially, the top rate is a 26 megahertz interface. The overall data that gets transmitted over the interface is usually quite low, but there's very timing critical occurrences like between slots that a lot of data needs to be very accurate as far as when those transitions take place. Just kind of a update as far as what the working group has been doing over the last year. In Q4 of 2011, we had our latest release, which was version 1.10, and this essentially, we had 3 different documents that came out: a specification, an application note, and a PICS document. And this is in response to, we released the first version of the RFFE spec back in July of 2010, and there was a very big push to get that out really quickly. As a working group, we first formed late 2008, and there was a very big need to get this specification out there. And it's been very well adopted, and once it was out there, there was a lot of things that people pointed out in the first version of the spec that needed more clarification, which we really tried to address in the 1.1 versions of the documents. Currently, we're looking at a next generation of RFFE. We've been really trying to gather information from different companies that have been using the interface. We've done a number of surveys, both within MIPI. We've also done a survey within the IWPC, which we're just trying to gather lots of feedback from the users out there as far as what they want to see in the next generation type of interface. Just kind of a roadmap, what we're looking at right now. Past few months we've been gathering the requirements, trying to really pinpoint the requirements, which I just noted with the surveys. Right now we're going through the process of different working group members proposing solutions to those requirements, and that's kind of the main focus of this face-to-face meeting, is where a number of companies have proposed different ideas to address some of these concerns. And once these proposals get validated, we'll be in the process of creating the next document. Our technical freeze for the next version is slated to be in about 9 months, in 2013 in March, and that's when we hope to have all the solutions solidified for our new requirements. And as you can see by this timeline, it takes quite a while once we get these proposals agreed upon by the working group to actually create the document, to do all the editorial stuff. So this is kind of a timeline as far as when we would expect the next version of RFFE to be out there. And as a contributing company, if you want to use the next version of RFFE, March of 2013 is when implementers can really start implementing that next version. Some of the new features that we're considering for the next version is multi-master support. Currently, the first version of RFFE is a one-master system, and what we're thinking about for the next version is a multi-master system. And there's also been a lot of requests from working group companies to do multiple speed options. Currently, we go up to 26 megahertz, but there's been a number of requests for 52 megahertz, even higher. Kind of the decision there is going to be, we're going to do a lot of EMI analysis on the different speeds to see where we can go, and based off of that, we'll make our decisions. Another new thing we're considering is add the option of interrupts into RFFE. Currently, it's been kind of a master-slave operation where the only way the slave can communicate back to the master is if the master actually does a polling type of mechanism where it reads. But with this next generation, we're going to introduce the idea of, allowing the slave to initiate the communication. One of the things that we found out quickly with our RFFE 1 implementers that we define a field called product ID, and to be honest with you, RFFE has been adopted really quickly and by a lot of different companies, and the space we left for some of these reserved registers has not been sufficient because there's just so many devices out there, so many different applications that use RFFE. And we're finding out that certain fields that we've defined are not sufficient for all the needs. Another thing we're thinking about is synchronous reads. We're allowing more time for data to come back as far as during a read operation. And one thing that has been very key for the next generation, a lot of requests have been that it is backwards compatible with the current version, just because there's a lot of adopters of the current RFFE specification. So anything going forward, they would really like to see those devices play in the next generation RFFE system. Kind of a overview of the working group. Here's a list of a lot of the companies that have been involved in the working group. There's, like I said, been a lot of interest. Most of these you'll see are more of your traditional RF front-end vendors, but there's also, more of a system level companies too. But currently, we have quarterly face-to-face meetings. We usually have an intern meeting maybe once a year to make our meetings, our face-to-faces 4 times a year. We have weekly calls, usually 2-hour calls every week. And as a contributing company, anybody who's willing to contribute and or even listen and give us some valuable feedback, everybody's welcome. There's a lot of people that call in and a lot of times don't say much the first, 3-4 phone calls, but, as they get more interest, more understanding of what the interface can offer for their company, they get more involved. So it's been, there's been definitely a lot of interest out there, and we're sometimes not moving as fastly as we would like to, but at the same time, there's a lot of stuff that the working group is trying to address as far as trying to make sure the next version of the specification is really going in the right direction. And that's about it.